When we're dealing with haters, we have to think about how we feel about ourselves. Now you're like, Tyson, I thought this training is about them. How do I handle them? How do I do this about them? But so much about handling haters has to do with how we feel about ourselves. The truth of it is, if somebody says, let's say, for example, and I'll just use myself for an example because I can poke darts at me and it doesn't matter. I got a thick skin and it doesn't matter. I've had the training, right? I used to be very skinny, borderline runtish. I was a young little guy, bright red hair, pale skin, freckles all over his body, and I was always the runt. I was always the littlest. I was like the last kid to get picked when we played football. I was the last kid to get picked for teams, right? And I was always upset about that. And I was self-conscious about being the littlest. The skinniest, the scrawniest, the runtiest. People would call me runt. People would laugh and joke about how little I was. But at the end of the day, it's how I felt about myself that allowed that hater to magnify the problem. So for example, I'm a little guy, I'm out there young, and somebody says, and you're picked last for the kickball team or whatever, and it's like, crap, I'm the worst because I was picked last. And then somebody calls you a runt, and you know that you're already the smallest. How is that magnified? Can you see how that's magnified? It's magnified much bigger because you already know it about yourself, or you're already feeling this certain way. And then some hater comes along and says this thing, and then it just, boom, it blows it up. It magnifies it up, right? And so how do you feel about yourself? Write it down. Right? How do you feel about yourself? What are some things that maybe you might be a little bit subconscious about on yourself that maybe you need to work on? I was always the littlest. At this time in my life, I didn't know that I could just work out or exercise or eat better. I just thought food was something you push in your face. There was never a thought of protein content or how this food works with my body. There was never any of that stuff. And so because I felt this way and the people would, give me a hard time about it, I chose to let that get exploited. At that time, how I dealt with that as a little guy was I'll just punch you in the face and see if you do it again. Now, I was a little firecracker, a little fighter, right? But it still didn't fix the fact that I felt like a runt. I got to my freshman year in high school. I weighed 105 pounds. I was skinny, scrawny. I was literally like a popsicle stick or a toothpick, right? Because I started growing, but I was ultra skinny. And so I carried that with me for a long time. And the truth about it is, if you can learn to have a better self-image, then what these haters say doesn't penetrate so deep. How do you feel about yourself? That's the question.